Hello, this is Robert Foley, and this is another episode of Startup Kitchen. This week we have a special guest, Dan Martell. Dan is starting a new startup and launching at the Capital in Moncton, and it's called Clarity.fm. So Dan, just so for our viewers here, so they can get to know a little bit about you, can you talk about your background and how you got into entrepreneurship?
For sure. Yeah, Rob, first thing, thanks for having me on the show. Super excited. Obviously, I'm a diehard New Brunswicker and very proud Canadian. So my entrepreneurial story started about 10 years ago. I moved out west in 2011, and as I was driving across the country, 9/11 happened. And all the opportunities I thought I had dried up, and I ended up couch surfing for about 3 months. And it was from that experience I ended up getting an offer to work as a contractor for a company called Syncrude up in Fort McMurray, Alberta. Crazy place, just so that you know, it's nutty. And that started things off because as a contractor, I was working and I was then getting other calls from recruiters saying, hey, you know, if you're free, we'd love to hire you for this. And I realized if I had 10 people like me, I could start a business and retire. So that was the beginning, and that turned into a company called Spheric and another company, and here we are 5 companies later.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about your experiences at Spheric. How did you start that up, and when did you you said you conceived the idea when you were working at Fort McMurray, and you kind of said I could get 10 contractors, but obviously taking the first step to go start a company is a bit different. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you learned from there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it took me probably 2 years to get to the point where I kind of got through that process. I went and traveled the world a bit. But first day, I saved up $70,000 from consulting and hired 3 guys. And that was the way I started. 6 weeks later, I almost went bankrupt. I didn't know about a thing called cash flow. Even though I had money in the bank, I spent it faster than I was making it. And, I quickly learned how to sell my receivables just to make payroll and fix the cash flow problem. And that company ended up growing to about 30 people, and I sold it in 2008. So there's a lot of bumps along that road, but at the end of the day, it was a fun journey, and that was the humble beginnings.
Gotcha. So a lot of people, one of the things that we try and do at Startup Kitchen is encourage people to say, you can make it here in the Maritimes. And you proved that, and you did that in the Maritimes at a very early age. But then after that, you moved to Silicon Valley. Why did you move to San Francisco?
Yeah, so I mean, my last company, Spheric, was based out of Moncton, but we had customers from, I used to say, Washington to Warsaw. So all over the world, companies, Fortune 500 companies like Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson. And we just traveled a lot. So after I did that, I took some time off. I was fortunate enough to become independently wealthy at that point, and then realized that I had a bunch more ideas in my head that I wanted to go see if they would hold water with some of the smartest people in technology. So that's why I moved to San Francisco. And, I believe you can make it anywhere. My journey was more of one of education. So I went there to learn a lot of stuff from some of the smartest people, and then at some point, which is now today, take that information and bring it back home.
Okay. So you, when you were venturing into Silicon Valley, you were able to sell that as well, right?
Yeah, so we started a company, myself and my co-founder Ethan, who I met down in San Francisco about 2 years ago, called Flowtown. Flowtown was a social marketing application that businesses used to communicate with their customers on social media. And we ended up building the product, getting it profitable, then raising some venture financing, and then grew that over a 2-year period to the point where we got an offer to get acquired by a company called DemandForce.
Gotcha. So this was the first time, because you mentioned earlier when you were doing contracting that you had a $70,000 in the bank, and you didn't have to actually raise venture capital. So this was your first case in which you raised venture capital, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because I became an investor, an angel investor, while I was doing Spheric. I just meet really smart people and want to get involved, but realized there was value in staying focused. So raising money for Flowtown after bootstrapping Spheric made me realize there's actually a way to scale a business faster if you build a product that actually has economies of scale.
Okay.
Luckily we're able to make some money for our investors, so that's always a positive return.
So were you saying by having these angels and venture capitalists in the back and on your back, it actually kept you more focused because they were a reminder of you to say I have to get these guys a return on investment?
Yeah, and they were actually not on our backs. I mean, we actually only raised a seed round, so only $750K, so we didn't have a formal board. But what it was is just, being from the Maritimes, we put a lot of value in relationships and trust, and I felt a sense of obligation for these people that took a chance with me and our team to do good by them. So it was more of a personal pressure than the one from them. And I learned after the fact that after we sold Flowtown, every one of our investors pretty much said, like, hey, next time you do something, we're in, no questions asked. Like, that's a good feeling, but I mean, it took 10 years to get to that point, so it's
right.
not an overnight thing.
Okay, so you sold Flowtown about 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're back in Moncton, like in your home, like backyard, and you're doing your first startup since like 10 years, I guess, back here now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are you raising money for venture capital here, and why did you decide to come back to Moncton to do the next startup?
Yeah, so I mean, so I guess I did do Spheric here. So that was in 2004 to 2008. So that was my last New Brunswick company. Flowtown, just because of the logistics and kind of the technology we're building, was definitely better built there. What I've learned now is if you have a presence in San Francisco, and what a lot of companies, and I would say Radian 6 did this, is they spent a lot of time on planes, right? So they were at every social media conference. They held their own conference in Boston. So you really need to get connected. So the last 3 years has really been putting the groundwork to build a network in San Francisco and New York and other technology hubs to connect with the people that run the media, that they can help you hire the right engineers. And what I did is I came back to New Brunswick because when I come back here, and I do often, I spend 6 weeks in the summer typically, and then once every 3 months I come back. I wanted to have the same excitement around product and team and technology as I did in San Francisco. So for me, it's really about lifestyle design. I want to be in New Brunswick. I love the province. My family's here. I'm building a house here now. And when I'm here, I want to get in a room like I'm in now with the smartest people I can find and build technology that people love. So it's a bit selfish in that regards. But the beauty is we don't need to raise capital. The company actually has a business model. Personally, we did really well with the Flowtown exit. So I've earmarked about $200,000 as kind of like startup capital. And I don't think we'll even touch that because we're already generating revenue. So yeah, I just think New Brunswick offers a great balance of really amazing, talented people at a cost structure that's a lot more affordable than hiring people in San Francisco.
Gotcha. Do you find it hard to find a talent here compared to some place like San Francisco?
I think it's hard to find great talent in any city. It's not that they're not here, it's just they're usually employed. So I have this thing for recruiting, especially engineers, where I ask everybody that's an engineer that I meet, like, who's the smartest person you know? And what you learn after a while is that those people keep mentioning the same people. Right. And those people are very employable. So, or they're working on their own startup. So, you got to start a relationship early and build it over time. But that's how I've recruited. The guys that are working with me now at Clarity, I've hired 3 people. I've known them for 5-6 years. And, they were all gainfully employed when I came back here. And I just said, whatever you're making now, I'll pay you that, and I'll give you some shares in the new company, and they quit right away.
Rock on.
Yeah.
So what are some of the advantages of being located in the States and being located in New Brunswick comparatively?
Yeah, so I mean, and I wouldn't say the States, I would say in communities of entrepreneurship, you definitely have access to information you normally wouldn't have. Just for example, hiring a VP of marketing for a consumer internet company, there's never been a consumer really focused company. I would say maybe Barrett ExploreNet is the closest thing out of Woodstock, but Q1 Labs and Radian 6 and Whitehill and Spilo, they've all been B2B. So hiring certain key hires is really tough in the province, but the great part is we're 1 flight away from New York, and there's a population of 20 million in a 10-mile radius. And we're driving distance to Boston, and we're a flight away from Toronto. So for me, the cost structure and what the quality of life people can have living in especially in Moncton, is awesome. And at the same time, the talent's there. The benefit of being in the States is getting access to capital that comes with really good advice, right? So like our previous investors in Flowtown were guys like Mitch Kapor, who invented Lotus Notes, the founder, Steve Anderson of Baseline Ventures, who invested in Twitter, and Heroku that just sold to Salesforce. Like, just amazing investors, and they can give you perspective, especially when you're doing something like we are in consumer that local investors may not have. So I think there's a real benefit, and plus the media is there. So for me to get on TechCrunch, it's just an email to somebody because I know what they like and I've built a relationship with them over the last 2 to 3 years. So that's definitely the benefit. But you can create that even if you don't live there. If you spend enough time there, maybe once a month on a schedule, and you get to know the right people, you can still have those relationships even if you're physically not living in that city.
That's wicked. So let's get on to it. Let's talk about Clarity.fm. What is that?
So Clarity is the easiest way to get paid for your advice. The problem I want to solve is that I've learned at the age of 26 the value of getting advice from people who have done it before versus just the people that think they know. So when I was 26, I got advice from guys like Jerry Pond and Steve Palmer at Remsoft and previously Whitehill and Ken Nickerson, who was previously at Microsoft as an angel investor. And those guys have really changed the trajectory of my career. So Clarity is the easiest way for you to create a profile and put yourself out to the world that you're available for calls. That doesn't mean that people can interrupt you. Some people describe it as like a digital assistant. So what we do is if you're free, you can press 1 and connect with that person. If you're not free, it just automatically goes to your callback list. And when you are free, let's say you're driving between Moncton and St. John, you can hit start calls and you might have 7 people in your callback list and it just cycles through everybody hands-free. So that at the core is the problem we're trying to solve, is allowing people to have a public profile to connect with them, to call. We're all about conversations because I think without conversations you lose context. Right. And then we've got a lot of other features that are pretty interesting to allow people to discover and connect with new people that they may not know. So those are things we'll be launching on Thursday at the event at the Capitol Theater in Moncton.
So say I'm an entrepreneur and I want to contact yourself or something. So I would search for your profile online and then look for some kind of specialties that you have and say hey, this matches up with me. I need to contact this guy? Yeah, so you can actually go right now to clarity.fm/Dan Martell. So the namespace is first name, last name. There's people like myself and Jerry Pond, and I mean, there's a crazy amount of amazing entrepreneurs already on the system. And then those people, much like myself or others, can decide if they want to charge for that time. And then if they charge you, they want to donate it to charity. So you have all of those options, and it makes it super simple. It takes about 8 seconds to create an account. And afterwards, you can just share your profile link on your Twitter and your email or on Facebook, and then people then know you're available. Are people able to share the conversation afterwards? Say, I have a conversation with you, and I'm like, hey, that was great, but I want to share it with someone else. Are they going to have that feature available to them?
So we're not launching with that, and I'm not sure if we're going to enable that. I mean, there's a reason why we're going to conversations and not video chat like Skype video, like this video, or doing stuff that's more broadcast in nature or recording it. I think, for the most part, a lot of the conversations, the good ones, are very personal, right? Where an entrepreneur is stuck, they're having issues, and it's not something that they would want to share, nor the advisor or the person giving the advice would want that to be recorded on record. When I sit down with my mentors or my advisors and I sit down and we have a conversation, the only way I can ensure that quality is there is if they know that I'm not gonna, record it and put it on my blog, right? They want to be able to speak freely. So I don't think that's something we're going to do, but you never know. It all depends what the customers say and how we can introduce the feature in a way that makes sense.
Cool. So is that kind of why you have the FM extension with Clarity?
Yeah, so the FM is twofold. One, Clarity.com is obviously already taken and the business is built around that. FM, kind of the connotation is that it's a broadcast concept, so people can broadcast their availability and get inbound requests. And it was a domain that we felt clarity as a concept definitely speaks to what we're trying to solve. The problem we're trying to solve is give people clarity in their challenges.
Gotcha. So do you think right now is a good time to start a business in the Maritimes, with all the, recent exits and whatnot going on?
I think it's always a great time to start a business, more so now for sure. And I'm assuming the economy is going to hold up. But what most people don't realize is that there's more capital right now to invest in early stage company than there ever has been in the history of the province. And you couple that with technologies like social media, so it gives you access to distribution, blogging, so you can create content that people can find you and you can talk about the problem you're trying to solve. So free marketing, that kind of thing. Yeah. It's never been better time. The thing that we lack is good ideas and execution of those good ideas. Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean nothing. So, I think what we need is more entrepreneurs starting and focusing and doing it full time, right? Nights and weekends is great to kind of prove out an idea, but once you see that there's some proof in it, you really want to execute quickly. And hopefully we're setting the example by, being a 5-week-old company already generating revenues, and we're only a team of 3. So I think for sure, especially in New Brunswick.
That's good. So what you were just talking about, funding and whatnot. What advice do you have for funding for future entrepreneurs in the Maritimes?
The best advice, and it's the essence of what clarity is go get advice from those who've done it before successfully. So it's pretty public knowledge who are the guys that have recently sold companies like Q1 Labs and Radiant 6 and Whitehill and Flowtown and myself and others that have raised money like Matt at Limbix and Manuel and Monk at Vimsoft. I mean, just approach them. And honestly, hopefully they're going to be on Clarity. And if they're on Clarity, give them a call and get that advice. So I don't think there's any reason why, if their idea is worthy of being a venture-backed idea and raising capital, then they're going to get funded. If it's not, they got to tweak the model and think bigger.
Gotcha. Do you have any books or stuff that you've read over the past years, or any keynotes that really struck with you to say hey, this is some good stuff?
The hard thing about books, when people, and I'm an avid reader, but a lot of times people, they ask me for advice on books, and I always ask them, what problems are you trying to solve, or what information do you feel you lack background in that you want to learn? Because every book has a specific message. The core ones for me are, and things I've learned recently, and I wish I learned it 10 years ago, is don't work on problems you're not absolutely ridiculously passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about it, when you're working on them, and you will have days where you get the world that pushes back on you, or people quit on you, or things fall through, if you're not almost insanely passionate about it, you're going to give up. And it's the ones that are passionate about the problems they're trying to solve that don't give up that actually make the headway. So that is not necessarily a book, but an essence or a thesis that I believe in. And the other one is hire the absolutely, everybody you hire has to be smarter than you, and your role is really as a connector and bringing those people together and setting the vision. So don't be afraid to hire people that are definitely brilliant and smart, and just act as that, quarterback or whatnot to execute.
Gotcha. Any last words or point of wisdom for anyone who's on the couch thinking about hey, I just want to do a startup, but they just don't have the balls yet to go do it, or just can't go forward?
Yeah, pretend you're going to die in 2 years. And believe it. Believe it. Just really believe it. Because, I don't know, maybe you will. But when I think about, I've only got 2 years to accomplish the things I want to do in my life, both personal and business-wise, it really sets my priorities straight, and I'm not sitting on that couch. Right? I'm going to get up and execute. And I think that, we don't realize that time is the only thing we can't get back. So if you have an idea, you're better off to go out there and try it and learn. And I mean, it took me twice. I failed. My first 2 companies were complete craters, lost money. And it wasn't until my third one, Spheric, that I made it work. So, you got to get those ones out of the way. So start today and realize that if you get the advice of the counsel, support from the right people, they're going to encourage you to get up and do it again. And I don't know, it's pretty awesome, I think, as long as you surround yourself with the right people.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate your time, Dan. I know it's valuable, but just put it out there for our viewers. You're going to be launching 5 o'clock p.m. Moncton at the Capitol. So where can they get those tickets? They can get them on Eventbrite, right? Yeah, if you go to Clarity for Charity, all spelt out, lowercase, one word, .eventbrite.com, you can register. They're almost sold out, so I would ask people to go get something quick. The other thing, if you want to reach me, you can get me on Twitter at Dan Martell, DanMartell. And then Clarity, same thing, clarity.fm/Dan Martell. And if any of your viewers have any questions, New Brunswick Canadian entrepreneurs come first in my queue of priorities. So feel free to email me at dan@clarity.fm, and I'll do my best to get back to you guys. That's awesome, Dan. Thanks a lot for your help.
Awesome, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Wish you luck. Bye-bye.